Welcome to the Learn True Health podcast. I'm your host, Ashley James. This is episode 3.
The body creates symptoms because it's the only language it can speak. People aren't getting insomnia or sleeping difficulties because they're Ambien deficient. That's not what the body's asking for. It's trying to say something's not right.
Well, welcome back, Dr. Megan Saunders, to the show. Always a pleasure to have you here. And we had to have you come back to talk about sleep. So welcome back.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here again.
So last time you were here, you taught our listeners about the foundations of health. If you don't have those foundations under control, then drugs and surgery, the more larger interventions, aren't as effective, and really you're just treating symptoms if you don't really take it seriously to have the foundations of health on board. So let's just do a recap. What are these foundations and why is sleep so important?
Yeah, and even to add on to that, so one, that the higher level interventions don't work as well if you don't have the foundations of health established. And if you don't have the foundations of health established, you're more likely to need or be recommended a higher level intervention because you're more likely to go further in terms of the disease process. And so foundations of health, meaning that the input's good, you're eating good, high quality food in the right proportions of your vitamins, nutrients, minerals, carbohydrates, proteins, fats, all of those things that's prepared well. And
we'll have to have another podcast for that because you can just tell someone eat whole foods or eat healthy or eat good proportions, but we don't know what that is. I mean, you have the training as a naturopathic physician, very specialized in understanding diet and nutrition. And so we'll have you back to teach our listeners how to balance their diet to maximize their nutrients. So don't worry, listeners. Yeah. We will get there, but today is more about sleep. But again, please continue about the foundation.
Good nutrition, right? A healthy sort of emotional state, meaning that your body, it doesn't mean that you have no stress in your life, but it means that you're able to respond appropriately to stressors that, chronic anxiety or depression, anger, all that your emotions, when they show up, are able to be processed in a way that's appropriate. So, anger is a useful emotion, and it doesn't mean that you should never get angry about things. If I didn't get angry about pollution, then I would never try and do anything to try and change it. But if it's an emotion that is getting stuck, that you're unable to process it, that's keeping you up at night, that you're not, that's the unhealthy part. So having a healthy processing of your emotions, and then a healthy spiritual life, which doesn't mean that you have to necessarily have a certain spirituality, but that you're kind of on the Venn diagram, this overlaps a lot with emotional health, right? But that you have a meaningful purpose in your life, that you don't just feel like there's no point, or that the only point of it is to, get the next jet ski, which jet skiing is fun, right? But perhaps that's not the meaning of life.
Like you said last time, an Australian musician had said, in Australia we work to live,
right?
And in America it seems as though you live to work,
right?
Which doesn't leave a lot of room for feeling very purposeful or very spiritual in our life.
Fulfilled, right? And again, I use spirituality loosely. There are a lot of different ways that you can use that, but maybe feeling fulfilled in terms of your life purpose is it. So you could be an atheist or agnostic. And, if your life purpose is to have meaningful relationships with your family and, with the environment, with nature, then that's a meaningful purpose. That's where that falls into that category. And of the sort of physical foundations of health, using your body, having your body move with ease and grace, so getting good exercise and also good sleep, so restoration and rejuvenation. And so we talked about sleep. That was the challenge that we talked about, making sure that you go to bed at a reasonable time and you get sufficient hours of sleep. The number of patients that I see that come in, most of them are parents, most of them work, and they say, I go to bed at around midnight or so because, between the hours of 9 and midnight is when I get everything done. And I get that. That's hard. I'm a parent myself. I have a job, and certainly that is a tempting time to want to spot clean the kitchen or do the laundry or whatever it is that keeps us up. But over time, you're depleting your reserves. Every time that you steal time away from sleep, your ability to deal with stressors and function on a high level during the daytime when you're awake is less, so that perhaps you'll need more and more time awake at night because you're able to do things less well during the day or get less satisfaction out of it because you kind of feel like a zombie. So you might be spending that time with your children while they're awake, but not able to enjoy it because you're just not all there. You just feel tired. And so sleep is very important. And what some of our listeners may have found in attempting to try and do this challenge is that they had difficulty either falling asleep or waking and feeling rested. And so when I see a new patient, I always ask about energy. I say, how do you feel throughout the day? Do you feel like you need a nap in the middle of the day? Do you wake up feeling rested, or do you wake up feeling tired? And a lot of the patients that I see say, oh yeah, no, I wake up. At first they'll say, oh, it's okay. And I say, okay, well, do you feel like you need a nap during the middle of the day? Yeah, well, if I don't have my coffee, yes, I need a nap during the middle of the day. Okay, well, do you feel rested in the morning? Well, I mean, after I have my coffee, I'm all right. But, most of the time they say no. They don't feel rested. And that's telling me that they're not filling up their tank at night in terms of sleep. And so what I want to talk about today are some ways to address that.
Absolutely. We definitely want to get to that. But first, let's just drive home the point. So it feels, I'm a career woman. I'm also a mom. I also have a husband. And I'm pretty sure our listeners, a lot of them feel like they take care of their family, they take care of their work or their career, and they put themselves last.
Yeah.
And whether you're a man or a woman, we tend to not take sleep seriously because it seems kind of lazy. I mean, you're just lying there. You're not being productive. We're kind of taught.
You've got stuff to do.
You got stuff to do. And we're really taught in this society that to be productive, to not be lazy. And so it doesn't seem so lazy to get 8-9 hours of sleep. That seems like something that only rich people could afford to do, or I'll get enough sleep when I'm dead or when I'm retired.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I remember when I was a teenager, I'd love to do all-nighters. That was the thing that was, culturally, we all like, let's pull an all-nighter. Let's just hang out and see the sunrise. And so we did not respect sleep as a teenager and into our 20s, cramming for exams. And that's sort of culturally where we see that in the media.
Yeah.
And then you're in your 30s and you're a career person and you're on the go and you got to beat traffic and you get the kids to bed. Now it's like, okay, it's 10 at night and I haven't had any personal time because I don't allot any time for myself, or I don't have I have a very purposeful spiritual life. And so I want to stay up till 1 a.m. watching TV just so that I can feel like I had some downtime to myself, right? But when you said that we're stealing from ourselves, we're stealing time, sleep time from ourselves. What is the impact of not getting enough sleep? And what happens? What do we do when we're sleeping? When we're in our bed, what is our body doing?
Right. So your body does a lot during sleep. Your body has diurnal patterns, meaning that your hormones fluctuate based off of daytime, nighttime, sleep, or not sleeping. And so your body makes growth hormone at night, and you definitely need that in terms of just maintaining your body and health and well-being. Your body does a lot of detoxification. That's when your liver often gets quite active at nighttime in terms of just not even toxins, but just breaking down normal byproducts of daily life, a hormone regulation. All these things happen during the nighttime, and so your body needs to rest. The brain needs to turn off, and when we deprive ourselves of sleep, all sorts of things tend to be problematic. So one of the things that can get off is your cortisol levels. So what should happen is that you wake up bright-eyed and bushy-tailed in the morning, let's say 7 a.m., and your cortisol levels are nice and high, and then they slowly go down throughout the day. They're at their lowest maybe around midnight or so, and then they start to go back up. When people's cortisol levels get off, whether it's due to chronic stress during the daytime, which can cause spikes in cortisol, or whether you're not sleeping at night and so you're forcing your body to be stimulated at night, driving those cortisol levels to stay higher, or if you have blood sugar swings because you're not eating properly and so you're maybe getting hypoglycemia, low blood sugar, triggers cortisol to spike, so people can wake up with their heart racing because they're hypoglycemic, and that then triggers another process in the liver, glycogenolysis, making new blood sugar, and then you get these blood sugar swings as well, and insulin dysregulation. So it's very complex, and if you're to look at a chart of biochemistry, it certainly would be overwhelming. So we have to kind of look at it in a broad overall picture, but there's a lot of impacts in terms of not getting sufficient sleep, and that's why it is one of the foundations of health. It's not a luxury, it's a requirement to get sufficient sleep, and it is very tempting to sacrifice that. And so we really have to make people, I think what you said about people putting their families first. I see a lot of men and women coming into my clinic, and they take care of themselves last. And to start, I always tell, and they always kind of feel guilty or a little bit ashamed. Well, I've kind of, I've let this go because this, and this. I had to work and take care of the kids, and they feel guilty because they're overweight or because they're tired or because whatever. And the first thing I tell them is I say, you did what you had to do during that time to support your family. Now let's find a way for you to continue to support your family, recognizing that the best way for you to do that is for you to be in good health, right? So you don't need to feel guilty about taking care of the ones that you love. Those are your values. Let's find a way to make those values fit in a sustainable, long-term pattern of, if your values are that you want to have meaningful relationship with your children, you want to be productive in your career and have a meaningful impact in the world, and that you want to be able to support your family financially, all of those things you're going to do better if your mind is clear, you have high levels of energy, and your mood is good, because people who suffer from low levels of sleep are also often depressed or anxious. And so all of those things affect the quality of your life, the quality of your work, the quality of your relationships. So let's make it better, and let's do it better. So the first thing is having people realize, and this relates back to our earlier podcast when we talked about making the investment in the sustainable decisions, whether you're talking about a business and choosing high quality materials to build a home with rather than a poor quality material just to get the thing up, right? You want to do the same thing for your body. And we had talked about the analogy of choosing good foods, organic foods, but this is also an input into your body. And so you want a high quality input of sleep for your body. It's a foundation. The foundation, let's pour the cement to build the house on, and that's the foundation that we want to have established. So the first step in terms of good sleep is recognizing that it's important. And then the next step is figuring out what is prohibiting you from being able to sleep well. So, patients realize, the person who's come in to seek help has realized, okay, I know sleep is important, but I have difficulty going to sleep. So, they, agree to say, okay, I'm going to let the dishes go, or we're going to do it a different time, or whatever plan they make to be able to go to bed on time. They say, I'm going to try and go to bed. Come back, try to go to bed at 10 o'clock and laid in bed for the next 3 hours. Right? So that's the first thing. Lots of people have difficulty falling asleep. Some of that has to do with just unwinding from the day. People lay down and I say, okay, well, when you're laying down in bed, what are you experiencing? And most commonly when it's difficulty falling asleep, they say, I just lay there. My brain doesn't turn off. I'm thinking, I'm going through all the problems that I went through during the day. I call it the hamster wheel. You're just going over and over and over again, trying to feel out and problem solve, or just reliving stressful events. It just depends on each person's personal circumstance, but as a general rule, that's what I tend to hear. And so several things affect that. One, going back to, again, the stress hormones. So if the stress hormones are off, one of the things that will cause the body to go through this sort of hamster wheel of sort of repetitive thought is if the cortisol levels are high, because you're getting stimulative input. And so one of the things I often have people start are herbs like ashwagandha. Ashwagandha is an herb that helps stabilize cortisol levels. And so I often have people take that before bedtime so that their sleep patterns, so that they're not going to have those cortisol spikes. And perhaps during the daytime, taking something that's going to stimulate cortisol so that we're able to regulate that. So during the daytime, higher levels of cortisol, more reserves. Nighttime, cortisol levels aren't going to be spiking as much. So sometimes that's sufficient. And what I tell people is, this isn't a sedative herb, and I use it with other herbs as well. It's not a sedative bunch of herbs. They're herbs that help you turn off that stimulating input and let you feel how tired you really are, because that nervous system input, that stimulating input, is overriding your level of fatigue that you're feeling. You're just not able to go to sleep. Your brain won't turn off. Now, there are physical practices that you can do for that as well. And oftentimes what I'll have people do are biofeedback techniques or doing a meditation, whatever kind of fits best with their sort of world perspective. But in terms of biofeedback, doing breath work is important because it gives you the ability to give the brain something to do. That's what it wants, right? It's looking to fiddle with something and work, but you're working on something that's going to be calming. And so slowing down the breath, doing a nice deep breath in through the belly for about a count of 4 to 6, maybe doing a 1 second hold, and then exhaling for longer than that, so that the respiratory rate, it can get down to as low as 6 per minute, which is quite a long breath cycle. But doing this, and I often hook patients up to a machine where we're checking their heart rate in correlation to their respiratory rate, and we really see a nice pattern of normally what should be happening is when you breathe in, your heart rate increases because there's increased resistance in the lungs, and when you exhale, your heart rate decreases. And so when we say that you have a heart rate of 60 beats per minute, that's really an average of this normal fluctuation. And so as people what should be happening is you see a nice sine wave on the machine of increasing heart rate and decreasing heart rate with the respiratory rate. When you have stimulating input, if you're nervous, if you're anxious, then that can override the heart rate. And when I hook them up to the machine, it's this jagged sort of pattern without a lot of variability. And the nice thing about biofeedback is it doesn't matter. It's not a chicken or egg situation of like what came first, the anxiety or the unstable breath pattern or the breath pattern causing the anxiety. If you're able to change one, it will affect the other. And I have never had a time with a patient where I've hooked them up to the machine, they've had that sort of jagged pattern in terms of their heart rate, and then be doing a breathing exercise after 5 minutes that the sine wave pattern didn't show up very nicely, and then I ask them how they feel, and they say, really calm. I feel really good. And getting into that state, and the research shows that doing this biofeedback 20 minutes a day, 5 days a week, is enough to train your body to be able to feel on a subconscious level what that feels like and be able to slip back into that even during the day. So it helps with your stress during the day. But going back to sleep, this is helpful in terms of turning down the brain. And lots of people will fall asleep while doing this meditation. Now, it's very challenging for novice meditators to do that because they say, oh, my brain sometimes it can feel like torture, especially for people that are very, very busy. It can feel torturous to do meditation. And, set yourself a calming little chime on your phone, whatever it is, so that you're not constantly checking the clock, and commit to sitting through that, because it will become less torturous with time. Oftentimes you'll fall asleep, you'll feel really good. And the difference between the novice meditator and the experienced meditator is the novice meditator says, oh, I was meditating for 20 minutes and my brain went off on a tangent, I got lost in my thoughts 20 times. And the experienced meditator says, I came back to my breath 20 times. The exact same thing happened. They got distracted 20 times. The experienced meditator realized, I'm gaining control. I'm able to redirect my thoughts back to where I want to. And that's the purpose of doing this before bedtime.
So it's a choice.
Right. So it's a choice, and you're training your body it's like exercising a muscle, lifting a weight, and that's why it becomes easier with time. So doing the herbs to help stimulate that. Sometimes melatonin is also helpful, but not always. Some people, melatonin isn't the issue. Their body's making the melatonin, but they're getting too much anxious stimuli as an input, and they're not able to go to sleep. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the issues. So ashwagandha, an herb that I use oftentimes in conjunction with other herbs, and then also doing the biofeedback, doing the breath work at night before bed, and that oftentimes gets very good results. Now, when we're talking about hormonal regulation and other things to do, more sedative issues, right? So if the hormones are off, if your body's not making sufficient melatonin for some people works amazing. For some people, they take it, they don't notice a thing.
So just for those who don't know what melatonin is.
Melatonin is a hormone that your body makes on its own that we also are able to take as a supplement. So melatonin should get higher at nighttime. It has a lot of broad sort of acting effects on the body, including even in terms of cancer treatments. There's lots of research in terms of melatonin and using very high dose melatonin for things like breast cancer and improving outcomes for breast cancer patients. So we're not going to go into all the details of melatonin, but know that it has an important role in the onset of sleep. And so things that interrupt melatonin synthesis are things like being exposed to blue lights, to screens. So that's why I recommend to patients that have a difficult time going to sleep that you don't go to sleep with your smart pad, your iPad with you in bed, that you're not watching TV in bed, because that's interrupting the production of this hormone that's making your body go to sleep. So that is very important, that light stimulation from the screens. Having no screen time an hour before bed is very helpful. Having a room that's completely dark. So if you're in the middle of the city and you're getting ambient light from the streets, putting shades on the windows that completely block out the light is going to be very important.
We did that, and my husband and I did that, and we noticed a great quality of sleep.
Yeah.
It's actually really affordable. We went to, Home Depot and got the blackout blinds.
Yeah.
And I love it. I mean, our room is completely dark, and I know the first night I noticed a better sleep just from removing light.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that we call it sleep hygiene.
Sleep hygiene.
Yeah, so making sure that the environment that you're sleeping in is good. Other things that are problematic for people with sleep is things like apnea. And so we look into, okay, do you sleep with your cat in your bed? Do you have a cat allergy? You would be shocked at how many people answer, yes, my cat sleeps in the bed. And then that follow-up question of, do you have a cat allergy? well, yes. Yes, I do. Well, I'll be darned. And you have trouble sleeping. That is the weirdest thing. So these things that can be challenging. And so, sometimes people are very, very attached to cuddling with their cats. And so then, we do symptomatic sort of treatment, and then I say, okay, 10 years down the line when this cat goes, please train the next kitty to not sleep in your bed. Until that time, get a HEPA air filter in your bedroom, and we probably want to be doing some things that reduce your production of histamine at nighttime as well. So things like quercetin and vitamin C and all of those things are going to be helpful for that. So this sleep hygiene, this environment of having where you spend a third, if you're not sleeping a lot, a quarter to a third to half of your life in this room, you need to make sure that it's a clean environment. So if you have allergies, making sure that there's no mold on the windows, checking the window sills, cleaning your bed. So especially, again, going back to allergies. So if people have dust mite allergies, throwing the pillows in the dryer 20 minutes once a week, every week, to kill off any of the dust mites, washing your blankets in high heat, washing all your sheets in high heat, even to the point of using hypoallergenic covers for the mattress and pillows. All those things are very helpful. If possible, hardwood floor is best in a bedroom. If you don't have a hardwood floor, getting a HEPA vacuum that's going to vacuum all of the sort of dust particles, animal particles, all those things out of the floor is also going to be important. So creating this sanctuary to go rejuvenate and rest your body is incredibly important as well. And so that's another piece for folks that are struggling with sleep, especially if apnea is part of the problem. Why is it part of the problem? And some people, apnea, obesity is a problem with that. And then it becomes, well, if you're not sleeping, it's challenging to lose weight, and it's challenging to sleep if you're overweight. And so then we do things like lifting the head of the bed. So you can do that by putting even a phone book or a 2x4 under the head of your bed. That helps with acid reflux and with the apnea in terms of gravity opening up that airway. Some people will use dental pieces to help open up their mouths. There are a lot of different things that can be quite helpful for that. CPAP machines, I can see those being helpful in the short term, right? So we look at short-term and long-term answers. CPAP machines also increase oxidative damage because of the concentration of oxygen. So, plus and minus in terms of you're sleeping better, that's great. But maybe long term we want to figure out and get a better answer to why do you need the CPAP?
What's the root cause?
Right. Do you have apnea because of the allergies? Do you have apnea because of weight issues? Do you have apnea because of the chronic acid reflux that's causing inflammation, irritation through the oral cavity? You know, all these different things. So getting to the underlying cause. And when I talked to you before, I talked about I like to give people short-term relief and long-term answers. So sometimes that is an important short-term plan. Short-term may mean for the next 5 years, right? It really depends on how much work we have to do. So getting some of these physical structural things on board. Now, some people need sedative support. So not only do they need perhaps the ashwagandha, which is simply enough to be able to turn off the stimulation, but sometimes we need to do sedative support as well. And that's where you see a lot of times people using things like Ambien, and we've all heard those reports about people driving in the morning, not even aware that they're alert or awake throughout the day, not remembering what they've done. I've never had to prescribe any sort of prescription sleep aid. We've been able to do it through these other means. And so using herbs like valerian, which is a nice sedative herb. Skullcap is a very calming herb. So lots of times I do it with herbs and sometimes in conjunction with melatonin, or even time-release melatonin, so that you're getting a slow amount of that through the night. All those things can be helpful, especially the time-release melatonin can be helpful if you're waking up later in the night. So sometimes people need support in terms of falling asleep, not just in decreasing that stimulating input, right, with things like ashwagandha, but also in terms of a more sedative effect.
It sounds like you start with let's bring the body down naturally before you go on to let's sedate you.
Right. Oftentimes I do. I start with that, and that's why I give people samples of things to try before they have to buy a supplement or a tea or a tincture or whatever it is that we're doing, so that they can get the opportunity to try it, because sometimes we'll go through 3 or 4 different formulas until we find the one that works right for them. And so in terms of sedative herbs, lots of times that is a combination of things like kava and valerian. Skullcap is a nice herb to use as well for that's calming to the nervous system, not quite as sedative, but a lot of different combinations as well with melatonin. So some of the products that I use are a combination product, and they'll have melatonin and these herbs in it, and sometimes there'll even be a time-release melatonin, so that if they wake up at nighttime, that they're able to have a less likelihood of waking up. What I also do, so kind of those are the 3 things in terms of sleep onset that we tend to look at. So, lowering the amped up nervous system, right? Toning that down a bit. Making sure that the sleep hygiene is in place, so that you're not working on the computer, work, lie down in bed and expect to fall asleep right away. The body isn't made to do that. It's impairing your body's melatonin production, especially going from super stimulated then to expecting to be able to fall asleep. That doesn't always happen. So making sure the sleep hygiene is there, and some of these physical things like addressing apnea and allergies and the cat sleeping on your face, all of those things are taken care of as well. And then moving into, so then some people come in and say, oh yeah, I have no problem falling asleep, but I wake up 3 or 4 times during the night, or when I do wake up, even if it's only once, then I'm unable to go to sleep either at all or for another hour or so. So that's another issue, and there are a couple causes for that I oftentimes see. One can be low blood sugar, right? And we talked about that a little bit in terms of chronic stress and cortisol levels. So if your body is if you have some insulin dysregulation, perhaps the food input isn't the best during the day, and so you're getting high blood sugar swings and then low blood sugar swings, that can be problematic, and that can stimulate, if you're getting low blood sugar, that stimulates cortisol production, which causes you to kind of wake up alert and awake and very stimulated, right? And so what I often have people do for that is we also look at fasting blood sugar and their hemoglobin A1C, which is another measurement of average blood sugar, and see, are you in an early stage of diabetes or at risk for diabetes or metabolic syndrome? And then in terms of practical interventions, eating some protein before bed is going to be helpful in terms of maintaining a normal blood sugar throughout the night. as well as looking at their diet during the daytime to see if there are some things that are causing wide swings in blood sugar. So that's something important that we oftentimes will try.
It sounds like if someone has problems with sleep, those could be whispers of symptoms of deeper underlying issues that could potentially become diseases.
Right.
So it's actually like this twofold thing. If we're avoiding sleep because like stealing sleep from ourselves because think we're busy or think I can survive on 5 hours and 5 cups of coffee, then what we're doing is robbing ourselves of the time our body needs to regulate hormones, to produce new healthy cells, to get rid of toxins, to have a healthy immune system.
Exactly.
To have a healthy psyche, have healthy energy levels. We're robbing ourselves of the time that our body does that. And if we have problems with sleep, like falling asleep or staying asleep, it sounds like those are symptoms of issues like possibly prediabetes or adrenal fatigue or cortisol issues or hormone issues. So physical problems, but it also could be mental health, emotional health, spiritual health. It sounds like sleep is almost like a way to not diagnose, but help you look into, well, what else is going on in the person's life if they're not getting enough sleep. It's sort of sounds like something that is really more important than I even knew.
Yeah, it's a symptom. And, and you'll hear me say this so many times, is the body creates symptoms because it's the only language it can speak. And so, people aren't getting insomnia or sleeping difficulties because they're Ambien deficient. That's not what the body is asking for. It's trying to say something's not right, whether it's blood sugar is off, whether it's the cat sleeping on my head and I'm allergic to it, or that there's too much stress in your life and you're not able to process it, and that's what's keeping you up. All of these things, there's a message, and we have to be able to respond to it appropriately. And sometimes some of the treatments that I do override that symptom a little bit, right? If I'm using sedative herbs, I'm going to override that anxiety symptom somewhat, right? If part of the problem is I'm chronically stressed out because I'm taking care of my elderly mother with Alzheimer's, as an example, I've definitely seen patients that say this story, and I'm working, and et cetera, then I'm going to give her some sedative herbs for that patient. And then we're also going to talk about what things can we do to help manage these stressors? What resources and help can we get on board so that you're able to do these things in a way that's healthy and sustainable? Because people can respond to high levels of things that we might consider stressors and thrive. It's about how you interpret what's going on and manage it, and the storyline that you tell yourself about what you're doing in your life. And so there's that aspect as well. So certainly, yes, it's a symptom and it's a foundation of health. It's both of those things. In terms of herbs and things that we'll use, if people are waking up at night, we'll if it's a blood sugar issue, we can do food before bedtime. High quality proteins that are going to break down more slowly, proteins and fiber. Sometimes I'll have people do saliva tests where they take a sample of their saliva at night and see, are their cortisol levels off? And in which case, then we're going to be doing more of the adrenal herbs as well to assess, is that why they're staying up late? And even that is a symptom. Why are your cortisol levels off? There's more to be read into it than just that. And then, in terms of symptomatic treatment, for the person that has difficulty falling asleep and wakes up at night, oftentimes I'll give them a tincture, which is a liquid extract of an herb. It's a concentrated extract. And I'll say, okay, we're going to take this before bed. And they say, oh, it worked great. I was able to sleep for 4 hours and then I wake up. So, okay, so then what we do is you're going to be doing the breath work while you're waiting to go back to sleep again, so it gives their mind something to do. And I want you to take 2 droppers full of this tincture every 15 minutes for the next hour until you fall asleep. Normally people will fall asleep within 15 to 20 minutes if they're doing the breath work and taking the tinctures. So tend to have a lot of success with that as well, but it's this balance of, are we listening to the underlying cause and addressing those problems while also giving that person relief? Because if they're not getting relief, they're not going to stick with it. And so treatment plans need to be practical, effective, and effective meaning short-term relief and long-term relief, for people to be able to stay motivated and to complete the plan, to make the changes that they need to make in their lives.
That is fantastic. Now, if you want to learn more from Dr. Megan Saunders, or you want to know what is this tincture that she's recommending, or what more nutrients you could add to your life, and you want to learn from her, you can go to learntruehealth.com, watch the videos that she's done on sleep and on nutrition, and ask her questions there. So learntruehealth.com, and join us, become a member. It's super affordable to be able to become a member and join our community, and ask Dr. Megan some questions and help you dial in your sleep. Now, one thing I learned from Dr. Wallach, Dr. Joel Wallach, who's 75-year-old naturopath, he is amazing. I'm a big fan of his. He said that falling asleep, if you have problems falling asleep, definitely add a liquid mineral supplement to your diet, calcium and magnesium. Yeah. And when I did that, I added he formulated a line of supplements. And when I added the his calcium magnesium liquid supplement to my diet right before bed, I was amazed at how I relaxed. What is up with calcium magnesium and helping us relax?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. There's so many different interventions. That is one of the primary ones that we often use as well, using calcium and magnesium. There are all sorts of different formulas that folks will use, but part of that's really important is magnesium is used in over 300 biochemical processes in the body. You use it for a lot of people who, again, going back to the adrenal gland, run through a lot of magnesium with adrenal fatigue. Your body uses magnesium for muscle relaxation. So oftentimes having that on board is very important, and something that will tell me that that's a priority to have on board is if someone has sleep issues and muscle pain, if chronic muscle tension, if they're coming in and talking about their tight shoulders and their pain in the neck or their lower back, calcium and magnesium are both going to be very important in terms of affecting that muscle contraction and relaxation. And so you also need calcium magnesium in terms of regulating your heart rate. We use those in terms of blood pressure to help people have healthy blood pressure. And so that's one of those, someone walking in and so sleep as a symptom is going to be one piece of assessing someone who perhaps has a calcium or magnesium deficiency. And oftentimes those two minerals go hand in hand together. They in terms of building healthy bones, in terms of heart rate, in terms of musculoskeletal issues, these two often work together, and so that's why they're so commonly formulated together in different products. So yes, thank you for bringing that up. That is a very important one to have on board.
Now, a lot of people think, listen, I drink milk. I drink my 8 glasses of milk a day or whatever. I follow the American food pyramid, and I think I'm getting enough calcium and magnesium from my diet. And yet they have symptoms in their life. And I know we're definitely going to go into this more in another podcast, because it's so important to realize that everything you put into your mouth, your body uses to make healthy cells or not healthy cells. And so to think that we could get all of our nutrition, optimal nutrition from our food, it's actually really difficult to do that because of the farming practices, because of we're not shopping the perimeter of the store. There are more reasons, and you have told me, but tell our listeners some reasons why we can't get our nutrition all the time from our food, and why supplementing, especially if you can't sleep, is important.
Yeah, so I like the example of milk, right? People say, well, I drink a gallon of milk every day. I'm getting plenty of calcium. So several reasons why you may not be getting sufficient calcium from your milk. One might be a lot of people tend to have issues with dairy, right? And so if you're eating a food, or even if it's not dairy, if you're eating other foods that are causing inflammation in your gut, like lots of people have gluten sensitivities, you're not going to be absorbing the nutrition that's in your food. So whether it's a patient that might come in with some chronic acid reflux and they say, well, I drink a gallon of milk every day and I have difficulty going to sleep and I have some muscle twitches and pains and some anxiety or blood pressure issues. Well, all those might be because you're not getting sufficient calcium and you're not absorbing your nutrients. And we could address all of those by eliminating dairy, right, from the diet and absorbing calcium from other sources. Now, to get to that other sources, so if we're talking about milk and we associate that as having high levels of calcium, where does calcium come from? Do cows make calcium? They breathe air and they make calcium. That's not, it's a mineral, right? It's a rock. And so there has to be the minerals in the soil, in the food that the cows eat, and then they incorporate that into their milk. And so if it's mineral deficient, if they're eating mineral deficient grains because of the farming practices where we're just pouring tons of nitrogen into the soil to get large crop yields, but not necessarily nutritious crops, then you're going to be having problems in terms of low nutrient quality in the food. And if you look at the USDA statistics on soil quality and mineral statistics, it has gone down significantly, depending on what nutrient you look at in the soil. And so that's why I have all of my patients be taking a multivitamin that includes minerals, because it's so important for your health. And I think it's impossible to get it sufficiently from the diet. Now, it doesn't matter if you have you're getting your milk and your crops or whatever from, you're getting your box from your local co-op, which is great. That's what you should be doing, is from your CSA, your community supported agriculture. Even there, it's going to be very challenging to get all of your nutrients and minerals from the soil because of the farming practices, because of the mineral distribution throughout the world. An example would be selenium here in Washington State, very low amounts of selenium in the soil, high amounts of selenium in the Dakotas. So it doesn't matter if I'm getting my cooperative box of vegetables from a local biodynamic raised by monks under a full moon, that it's not going to have selenium in it because it's just not here in the soil. And so in the example of calcium and magnesium, it needs to be present in the soil for it to be incorporated in the food. And so just because your milk is white doesn't mean that it has calcium in it. That just means that it's milk. Right.
So we have problems with digesting and absorbing nutrition, and we have problems with, because of the foods we eat, because we might be eating something that we're sensitive to, that's causing gut inflammation that we don't even know about, that we're eating foods that are causing harm to the gut. We might have acid reflux, which means our body's not optimally digesting, so we're not digesting, we're not absorbing, we're not even eating a whole foods diet.
Right.
So even the little minerals that are in our foods, we're not getting it because we're eating processed food instead of whole foods. So there's it's kind of stacked against us.
Yeah, and the example about sort of mineral availability in the soil, an example of that, and this is a good reason to buy organic foods, right, is so Roundup. What was the chemical in Roundup originally used for? It was used for cleaning pipes, right, because it's a chelator. What does that mean? It means that it grabs onto minerals. It binds to minerals. It'll clean out those pipes. So you put that in the soil and it is going to make those minerals unavailable for years into the future. And so while you might be killing off the pests that are eating the crops, you're going to have less nutritious crops. They're going to be more susceptible to pests because they don't have the minerals that even the crops need, that the plants need for their own immune systems, for their own defense against pests and fungus and all of these things. And then you in turn are going to be eating food that's less nutritious. So relating back to sleep, right? Yes, mineral deficiencies can also be an issue. That can be, sleep issues can be a symptom of that deeper underlying cause. And so as a naturopath, my goal is to identify what of these are the underlying cause, and oftentimes it's multiple things. And so we get 20% improvement with one intervention and another 20% because we're adding in the biofeedback, and then another, it all goes together. Rarely is there one magic key. Sometimes there is, and that's fun and amazing and very rewarding, but lots of times it's many pieces to incorporate into a whole lifestyle of improving your health, of bringing up everything together and improving the quality of your life. And oftentimes then when you do that, you don't only see sleep improve. If we're addressing underlying cause, we're not just addressing one symptom, we're addressing the whole person. And so then not only does sleep improve, but stress improves, energy improves, digestion improves, blood pressure improves, blood sugar improves. All of these things are getting better so that you are a well and healthy human being with a meaningful purpose in life, a healthy reaction to your emotions in terms of processing them, and enjoying your life. And that's my goal as a doctor. It's not to have people be taking supplements or to be eating organic or to be doing all that. All of those are tools and foundational steps to have people have meaningful, purposeful lives that contribute to the well-being of our planet, of ourselves. So I truly believe that this type of medicine is here to not only improve the patient, but improve our communities and the world, that living this way and these practices, sustainable farming practices, so that we have more minerals in the soil, so that we're eating the right food, so that we're taking care of the planet, so that all of these things are important. And it may seem silly to think that you're going to save the world by getting a full night's sleep, but I think that that's a piece.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Megan Saunders. I think you described exactly what all of our listeners want. They want a happy life. They want to feel successful. They want to feel fulfilled. They want to make a positive impact in their world. And we're going to get that 8 hours of sleep at a time.
Great.
If you want to learn more about meditation or about the breathing techniques that Dr. Megan Saunders spoke about, join Learn True Health, become a member, learntruehealth.com, and we have a yogi who came in and taught us. We filmed it, and so it's available for you. Taught us, all of us beginner meditators, what we can do to have successful meditation, no matter where you are, whether you're a beginner or you've been doing it for years. We have a fantastic training on meditation and on breath work. So please come to learntruehealth.com and check that out, and check out the other videos that Megan and other experts have created for us. Thank you so much, Dr. Megan Saunders, for coming to the show. Well, we will have you back because there is more to talk about gaining a fulfilled life and learning true health.
Thank you, Ashley. I look forward to coming back.
Looking for even more ways to feel and look healthy? Come to learntruehealth.com and get our free healthy cookbook. There are some delicious recipes and they're super healthy for you. All you have to do is visit learntruehealth.com.